just I'll get them moved over and then I'm gonna go check the live stream. Okay, we are streaming and I'm going to move over Councilmember Nash right now. All right, he's joining in.
All right, ready to rock and roll? Okay, welcome to a City Council study session for Business and Community Affairs. Today is April 1st, and this is not any fooling around. This is real. Okay, today's agenda is a discussion regarding programs provided by the Neighborhood Alliance, and we have guests today who will be providing important information for us. I look forward to hearing what they have to say. So if anybody has any questions, raise your hand and I'm going to turn it over.
Okay. So would you like for us, we thought we were going to answer questions, but we would be glad to give a little bit of a presentation first. I'm here, I see heads nodding, so that's what we'll do. My name is Georgie Rasco. I'm the Executive Director of Neighborhood Alliance of Central Oklahoma, located right in the middle of Oklahoma City. I've been there for 20 years, and I have with me today Ana Herrera Dangi, who is the Southside Community Organizer for our organization, and she's been with our organization for about 6 years. We have a small staff. We only have 6 people that work at our organization. Neighborhood Alliance is a almost 45-year-old nonprofit organization. It was started in Oklahoma City by some names you might recognize: Cliff Hudson from Sonic, and Sam Bowman, one of our famous council members for a long time, Suzanne Broadbent, former chief of staff of the state senate and a judge. Several people got together years ago, and 5 years ago, and said people would probably fix up their property and maintain it better if they had access to the right tools. So they started a tool lending library. And that tool lending library had things like chainsaws, lawnmowers, painting equipment, ladders, all that kind of thing. And it worked very, very well, very successfully for several years. And then the liability of loaning a chainsaw to a stranger kind of cut the insurance needs to where the nonprofit just couldn't afford that anymore. So in the course of doing the tool lending library, they had started working already with the historic preservation neighborhoods in town. And so they shifted the focus then to really helping maintain HP neighborhoods and figuring out how to make them stronger and more successful on their own. And that naturally then went to all other neighborhoods in the city, no matter whether they were voluntary neighborhoods, meaning they don't have any kind of covenants or structures, meaning that they must mandatorily pay dues. They're strictly a voluntary neighborhood that you join if you want to, but you don't have to join if you don't want to. And they did that in the HP neighborhoods, and we have what's called UCD, Urban Conservation District neighborhoods as well. So for years, that's what they worked with. And then has always been a very successful organization. We've always worked very closely with the city of Oklahoma City and the Oklahoma City Police Department. We believe strongly that you don't have to move to live in a better neighborhood, that if you were just given the education, the tools, not chainsaws, but the tools to learn how to really activate the people in your neighborhood, then we at Neighborhood Alliance can help you with that training for that leadership, help you along the way of organizing, and then help you get connected with the correct people at the city of Oklahoma City or the police department. You know, the city of Oklahoma City, and I know Norman's the same way, has over 4,000 employees. Unfortunately, not all of them love their job every day. So sometimes when a citizen reaches somebody for a permit for a fence, or why is that 7-Eleven being built on my corner, they don't always get the kind of customer service from the city that I know the city would want to give. So at Neighborhood Alliance, we connect ourselves with the city close enough that we do know the people in each. If you want to just learn about ornamental lighting and how you get that for your neighborhood, we know the exact person in lighting that you can talk to that knows how to talk to a novice neighborhood person. We know the exact people in each department that we can send you to. So we think that that really helps the customer service aspect of the city, that helps the citizens get to know, how to, we help them with how to word their ask, what it is exactly that they're looking for. We make sure that the citizens we work with in the neighborhoods know how to advocate for their own needs, but by due diligence. We want to make sure that we teach in our leadership styles that you have to start with the people that do the job before you go to the mayor. So, the mayor can't do anything if they ask, so I'm sorry about this stop sign that's been down in your neighborhood, but who have you talked to about getting that fixed? Well, that's who I've talked to. So we want to make sure that neighborhoods know, that all citizens know what their due diligence is and how you can get action on getting something done and fixed in your neighborhood. Then when you might have the bigger problems, such as a really big crime problem entering in your neighborhood, lots of vehicles being stolen or homes being broken into, or sidewalks that are totally crumbling, or something else that you really need to go to the city for some help, then you're a little more assured of what that process looks like and how to talk to somebody to try to get the best answers for you in your neighborhood. That's what our leadership style is all about, and what we teach in our leadership teams. What we do with organizing neighborhoods is we get our referrals from all different kinds of places. City council members call us and refer areas to us. The police department definitely calls us. Anybody at all or anybody that's just been to an organized neighborhood and wants to do that in their own neighborhood, they can call us and we will help them get started on organizing their neighborhood. And what we do is we start with a steering committee, and I'm going to let Anna talk to you about that in just a minute, more details about how that works. But we also, from that point, sometimes it takes a good 2 to 4 years before a neighborhood is really ready. They'll make that phone call, they have those burglaries, they'll talk to us, but they're not quite ready to do the work that it takes to organize. It's not our job at Neighborhood Alliance, nor is it your job as a council person or a mayor or an interested citizen to call us and say, who needs a neighborhood association? These neighborhoods over here off of Classen Boulevard. I drove through there and they really, really need some organization. We don't live there. You don't live there. There's no buy-in to that. So we can't be told where to go and organize a neighborhood. That has to be organic. They have to come to us at some point and ask for our services, attend a workshop, talk to somebody else, have some issues, talk to us one-on-one with what can I do with this problem or that problem, and then get to the point where they are ready to take that step into organizing a neighborhood association. Before I let Anna answer that a little bit further, we also work with homeowner associations. About 18 years ago now in Oklahoma City, the city of Oklahoma City passed an ordinance that says that any neighborhood that has any common area to it at all, just a common entryway even, must have a homeowners association. I don't know what the ordinance is in Norman. Of course, we'd have to learn all those, but I applaud that ordinance because I saw the nightmares of what happened when a developer built a neighborhood with even private roads sometimes and no association set up to maintain those features from here on out. So we started at that point when they made that ordinance. HOAs were no longer the richest of the rich. Our in Oklahoma City, we have Habitat for Humanity neighborhoods where they build most of their homes in these neighborhoods. And those 3 Habitat for Humanity neighborhoods are homeowner associations. We have at this point 36 HOAs that are located in low income areas. Those HOAs don't necessarily come with the capacity inside their neighborhood. They don't have a lot of lawyers and engineers and street professionals to help teach them how to run effective meetings, how to read bylaws, how to enforce covenants. They're lost with all of that. And as you all know, a homeowner association is a private business. The city can't step in and say, here, let me help you organize those bylaws or rewrite those bylaws. Or here, let me tell you how you're supposed to change your covenants, what the state laws are on that. By law, you can't interfere in that private business. Then they need to learn that when they bought into that HOA, they all bought into it as a co-owner of that HOA. So they don't have a choice to just say, we don't need it anymore. The city will come and mow eventually. Somebody will come and take care of our detention pond. Somebody will come and maintain the frontage road more than just once a month. We're not going to deal with it anymore. Legally, they don't have that right to do that. So we're a good buffer in that. I can't say that we can save every one of them, but we're a good buffer that if they truly want to meet their responsibilities, we can train them on what their responsibilities are. We can answer their questions on how to utilize their bylaws, how to utilize their covenants, how to change them if they're not being utilized. So we don't want to leave HOAs out, especially the ones that are in lower income areas and that are struggling with that. The rest of the neighborhoods, a lot of the HOAs don't need our services as much. They can attend the workshops that we offer and take that information and take it back and put it into full force. Whereas others do need that capacity to be, that help from us to be able to take the information from a workshop and really put it to work in their neighborhood. So I'd like to ask Anna to talk to you a little bit about our steering committee process on how we get neighborhoods involved. And then Anna, if you could also talk to them about our relationship with the police department.
Of course. Yes, when we work with neighborhood associations, it's a lot of work. It's basically getting the neighbors to I'm sorry?
It's one of the neighborhood alliance staff.
I think they were just not on mute, Anna.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm a Saddle Casey community organizer for Neighborhood Alliance. Been with the Neighborhood Alliance for a little bit over 6 years. I work mainly with voluntary neighborhood associations and occasionally as well with homeowners associations. Voluntary neighborhood associations, when they start getting organized, sometimes they come to us because they have an issue in their neighborhood. So most of the time, or majority of the time, that could be crime because that gets everyone moving. No one wants crime in their neighborhood. So that's one of the things, you know, working with the police department. Sometimes if they reach out to them, the police community relations officers in Oklahoma City keep a close contact with us. So we're able to serve those neighborhood associations and guide them on the process to getting organized. Some other times the neighborhood just wants to beautify the area. They want to be more social. We know that a social neighborhood is a safer neighborhood. So we always encourage neighborhoods to have those type of events.
Ms. Creed, Lisa? Lisa, can you mute your computer?
Okay. So when we work with the associations, we do have classes that we do that is how to organize your neighborhood. And we train the neighborhood leaders in how to even start canvassing the neighborhood, inviting neighbors to be part of this steering committee that's going to lead the effort and get the buy-in of the rest of the neighborhood. Because an association, when it gets formed, you obviously want everyone to be in agreement that that's what they want to do. So that's one of the first steps. So we meet with the neighborhood association, guide them through the process on how to get incorporated, how to get their bylaws ready, how to organize that first meeting, how to promote this first meeting to get as much buy-in from the rest of the neighbors. And to have those first elections to get going. Neighborhood associations usually either have a formal, a traditional model with their officers, or they also can have a leadership team that a lot of neighborhoods in Oklahoma City, that's what they're doing now, that they divide the responsibilities between all the members of this leadership team. That's a little bit of how the associations get organized. And throughout the year and constantly, we provide assistance to neighborhoods in, they don't know who to reach at the city for these permit. They call us and we guide them through the process. Or if the city of Norman has sign topper program, for example, that's something that's here in Oklahoma City. There's a sign topper program, and I have enough knowledge to be able to provide guidance to neighbors on how to get through that process, who the correct contact is, what type of drawings they need to submit, what are the guidelines. So we also serve as a connection between the city and the police department and the neighborhood associations, because we know that sometimes the individuals in the neighborhoods, for any reason, they might just not trust the police or not trust the city. But then whenever they know we are not really representing the city or the police, they trust us to guide them through the process. So it's a little bit of how we work with the neighborhood associations. We have a great relationship with the Oklahoma City Police Department. We had a contract with them for many years. And some of the trainings that we provide or assist them with is town hall meetings for each one of their divisions. We also assist them with holding citywide workshops so they can invite everyone in the community, and we provide the advertisement for them and do the registration for those workshops. We also coordinate Neighbors Night Out from Neighborhood Alliance. This is something that we assist with the police department, as they also know that a social neighborhood is a safe neighborhood. So we encourage many of the neighborhoods in the city to have an event once a year for it's basically what National Night Out is. Just National Night Out is usually in a really hot day here in Oklahoma. So we have it in the fall, and it's Neighbors Night Out. This last year, because of obviously the pandemic, we had to change a little bit of things. So we came with creative ways to still be able to connect with the citizens and connect with the police department. So we're still doing a lot of workshops. Some of them are virtual. We are slowly moving, and I think in the next few months we'll be in person, as we know that the connection sometimes people open up a little bit more when they're face to face than in the virtual world. So we have a really great relationship with the police department, and I think the neighbors know through us who the police community relations officers are in their divisions, or sometimes they'll reach out to us and we are able to connect with the correct department or the correct officer. I will say I served and assist the community in South Oklahoma City, and we do have a lot of Spanish speakers. So having able to go to the divisions with a resident that had questions, they just didn't feel comfortable calling, they didn't speak enough English, and we were able to create that connection and get the answers that they needed just because we were able to be that connection of the neighbor with the police department. Georgie, I do have the presentation that we used in the previous meeting that we attended. Would you like me to play the video about our mantra? Because I think that's a great video that everyone should see if possible.
Let's ask Brenda. Brenda, would you like for your group to see that? A short video on sort of our major beliefs from Neighborhood Alliance?
That's not a problem if you can display it where everybody can see it.
Can you share your screen?
I'm gonna give it a try right now. Let's see if this works.
We believe strongly in the power of neighbors. And I think this video will show you that.
Oh, he opened another window.
We believe in our community. We believe in block parties, front yard watermelon feasts, neighborhood Easter egg hunts, and reuniting neighbors with their lost pets. We believe in protecting property values and creating great places to live, work, and play. We believe in knowing our neighborhood police and fire officers by their first names. We believe in front porches, sidewalks, and neighborhood parks. We believe that you do not have to move in order to live in a better neighborhood. We believe that corporations are just waiting to be asked to help neighborhoods and local citizens thrive. We believe that our #1 crime prevention tool is to create a more social neighborhood. We believe in educating ourselves so we can be better, more involved, and more informed citizens. We believe our mayor, city council, and municipal employees all want what we want: a great city filled with great neighborhoods. We believe with support and training, all citizens have the power to be great neighborhood leaders and to lead positive change. We are the Neighborhood Alliance, and since 1977, we've believed in safe, healthy, and attractive neighborhoods for all. We believe in
Sorry.
Thank you for bringing that, Anna. Thank you very much. So we, like she said, we have a contract, and in Oklahoma City, we have a contract with the planning department in the city of Oklahoma City, and we have a completely separate contract with the Oklahoma City Police Department. And we have to make sure that the duties that are combined, that are served by both of those, since they're both being billed to the city, are not duplicated in any way, and that but yet we can still make sure that they complement each other as well. As Anna said, crime is the #1 reason that neighborhoods want to get organized. And then our job is to help keep them organized once the police department finds the 14-year-olds that were breaking into the backyards or whatever was happening, to make them safer. Then we want to make sure that they know that their work isn't done. That in order to maintain and keep a good social neighborhood, you need to maintain that neighborhood association as well. So that's a little bit about us. Let's see if you have any questions at this point.
Councilmember Hall, did you have some questions from the last time that you had this discussion? You're on mute.
I know Mayor Clark has got some questions.
So Mayor Clark has her hand
I'm
up.
sorry, I didn't see your hand up there, Mayor.
That's okay. I was just going to throw in that this has actually been, I would say, a mutual interest of both Mayor Clark and myself for a number of years now. I know she first got interested in the value of strong neighborhoods when she was representing Ward 6, and I would say that literally the value of building community in neighborhoods is how I find myself at this meeting today. So it started for me as a member and a resident in a historic district. And I do have a lot of questions and comments, but I'd love for the mayor to go first.
Sure. First, a comment, despite some things you see on social media, crime isn't really up in Norman, but there are issues with car break-ins, always cars getting stolen. That was, I think, the one thing that was up over the last few years. So I think there is a need there. And I'm guessing Councilmember Hall is invested in strengthening neighborhoods, not just because she's a good person, but because her neighborhood, and same thing with Ward 1, don't have a lot of HOAs. So these communities start at a disadvantage when it comes to organizing. So I think having an entity that can help them. And I sent the proposal that you gave us back in October. I assume Councilmember Hall and Patron have seen it, but I didn't know about Peacock or Nash. So I forwarded it to them as well. So it's in your city email. And it's budgeted at $100,000, which I think regardless of any funding stuff that's pending right now, that needs to be provided in our budget, because every neighborhood should be a great place to live in Norman, Oklahoma, and this can help with that. So I guess my question is almost more for Lisa. So I hope that this council will advocate strongly to allocate $100,000 to get Neighborhood Alliance going in Norman. Once our budget passes, how quickly can we implement this? Because I do understand that involves hiring a staff person.
Mm-hmm.
That's really a Georgie question, because the staff person will be a Neighborhood Alliance employee. They will be working for Neighborhood Alliance. And so I think in the proposal that Georgie made, she had some timelines on how long that would take to really, get the person on board and start making the rounds through Norman. Certainly as far as the planning department, I'm not sure if Jane's on here or not. We would be the conduit to work with Georgie. We've worked with Neighborhood Alliance in the past in a limited capacity and have the familiarity and enjoyed everything that they have done for us in the past, even though it has been very limited. So Georgie can chime in on how long it'll take.
Thank you, Lisa. It is very important for the way we operate to have the neighborhood capacity building organization separate from the city. It needs to be a completely separate entity and have its own identity. Currently, I don't know if any of you know, help me with their names in Norman, the researchers on Dr. John Harris and Dr. Lee.
Eugene Lee.
Yeah, I'm sorry, her name is escaping me. But for the last year, they got paid to do a study on Neighborhood Alliance and how unique we are in the country. There's really not any other organizations like ours, freestanding, that only do neighborhoods. And so they've been interviewing all of our city staff members, our neighborhoods, our partners, other organizations in town, to write a paper and hopefully be published on that about the efficacy of having a freestanding organization that works so cooperatively with the city. And I have to tell you, it was very humorous to me. About 3 or 4 weeks ago, we got a phone call from their research assistant, and he said, "Can you please give me some names of people that don't like you? Because all I can find are people that just love you guys. And I need to try to balance this paper somehow." So that's why it's important for us at Neighborhood Alliance to hire the employee and have them work for us, a separate nonprofit, 501c3, supervised by me, and I'm supervised, of course, by my board of directors. The neighborhoods need to know that there's a separation there, so that if they do need to advocate for their neighborhood for some reason, for a zoning issue or any other kind of issue, that they feel like they can come to us and get the support they need on how to do that, and not be afraid that we're not going to be afraid that our employee is somehow going to misuse his or her responsibilities with the city. So therefore, that's why it's important to have it separate.
That makes perfect sense. So
Good.
thank you for that clarification.
Good.
Can we ask that you hire a Normanite though?
Yes, that's very high on our demand list, is to hire somebody from Norman. We have a couple of people in mind that we want to ask. Of course, this was a year ago when we were hoping this might come through then. I don't know where they're at in their job and career minds at this point. So we will have to find somebody. It is tough to train someone for this job. It's a very nuanced job with a lot of details, but they're going to have a lot of supervision from Anna and our other community organizers and us. And of course, our graphic artist and PR person will still work with Norman in the same way that they work with the city and support this person. So your answer to your question, I'm trying to dance around, is how long. I would hope we could have someone hired within 6 to 8 weeks, and then give them a good 4 weeks to make the rounds at the city, because they and me and or another staff member have to come visit all of the city council members, the mayor's office, the different department heads, and we'll make appointments with all of these to see what their goals are for neighborhoods. What do you hope to see out of organized neighborhoods? How could that help your department? How could that help you as a council member? All of those things will go into the formation of the right kinds of programs and ideas that we will put into the Norman program. We can't just pick up the Oklahoma City program and lay it down in Norman and think that that's going to work and be good. You guys are a totally different entity and have totally different issues. So we need to find somebody that's going to be able to research that first along with our help so that we can customize a program that's going to be beneficial for you. What else?
Councilmember Hall.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was trying to hit the.
So I see, Lisa, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I was going to have Georgie just kind of give a little bit of an explanation about the part that I am excited about is as we go forward with this. In the past, the city of Oklahoma City has kind of dangled the proverbial carrot in front of neighborhoods as far as once the neighborhood has gone through organization steps and have their bylaws and elected officers and gone through all the training, they have a small pot of money to allow for a neighborhood project. And so if it is a CDBG neighborhood, certainly we could, and when I say small, I mean like a couple thousand dollars. We would be able to provide that funding if they're a CDBG eligible neighborhood, but the city of Oklahoma City would also have a small amount of money that was a general fund to kind of incentivize this. So Georgie, could you maybe talk about that a little bit?
This was absolutely, like Lisa said, my favorite way to get neighborhoods organized. The city has now moved on from that project and now has selects 3 low-income neighborhoods only to infuse millions of dollars into to make them more sustainable. But it started out, and that's called the Strong Neighborhoods Initiative. What SNI started out as were just small grants from CDBG and some money from general funds, because CDBG is limited, as you know, to do some kind of a project. At that time, ornamental lighting wasn't nearly as expensive as it is, and our small projects, they got anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 per neighborhood, but there was actually a small grant that they had to write. It wasn't a difficult one, but they had to go out and get the estimates. They had to go figure out the timelines, who's going to handle what kind of permits did they have to have. All of that had to go into this grant application first. And then the planning department went through the grants and approved which ones they thought were appropriate for that year. Then, and how many of them they could fund. So then at that, and Neighborhood Alliance helped with the application process, helped them get the application done. And then we stepped in and helped them do the actual grant. We don't do that for them, but we step in and help make sure they know where they're going for these permits and how to do a drawing for that and all of the different things in those ways. We had Sam Bowman, again, I've mentioned his name before. He's just one of my favorite city councilmen ever from Oklahoma City Ward 2. He one time said from the Horseshoe that just because we get ornamental lighting in a low to moderate income neighborhood at the end of one of these small grants, that's just icing on the cake. What we're really paying for at the city is that a group of neighbors, maybe strangers, 2 months before this, got together at somebody's kitchen table, planned a project, went out and worked with the city. They now know about permits. They now know about different departments. They know what public works is different from development department. They know what the planning department does. They know all of this information now about the city because of having to work on this project. So he said, what we're really paying for is for citizens to come together to do community and create a project and learn about how the city works in the long run. And I firmly believe that, and I've heard neighbors say after that process, now I know why when I call in a pothole, it takes a few days to get that thing fixed. They can't do it right away because they understand how slow bureaucracy can work sometimes. It's a fabulous program, but do be cognizant of the fact that CDBG money can't be spent on something like a picnic or a get together necessarily. It has to be typically some kind of a tangible project. So if you're going to do something like a tangible project for an entire neighborhood, it's going to take more than a couple of $1,000s. You know, there's not a lot that people can do with a couple of $1,000s in a neighborhood. It won't even build them a sign, even.
Right, right. And, you know, it's
This program.
right. And what we have seen is the power of neighbors when they come together, when we start talking about their neighborhood park and being able to have the input of you know, the picnic tables, the trash cans, the signage, things like that. Right.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
sometimes these small grants, they absolutely used them in their neighborhood parks. They wanted to add barbecue pits or game areas or whatever. And like Lisa said, you know, once you start getting your communities, your neighborhoods involved in ownership of those parks, then that comes Adopt a Park, where they also start helping maintain it and helping take care of that. You've got to get citizens involved at the grassroots level, though, before they ever have that kind of commitment to for what they think of as municipality only projects.
Thank you. Councilmember Hall?
Okay, well, I'm not exactly sure where I want to start because there's just a lot of territory that I'd like to cover. And so first of all, I want to thank Georgie and Anna for taking the time to be with us today on pretty short notice. So we really appreciate your flexibility and your being able to be with us today. I think what I want to start with just a little bit of context because I totally right in step with all the comments that Mayor Clark made. And interestingly enough, I think although the concerns about safety in your neighborhood and crime in your neighborhood, I think that certainly exists in Norman, but I'm not sure that is the motivating factor for a lot of neighborhoods that I know are interested in being more organized and you know, being able to address a lot of the things that you talked about. But I was just looking back today at all of the neighborhood plans that have been developed over the years with Lisa Craig has certainly been the expert in this area and have been with the city of Norman for a long time. And she's been instrumental in neighborhood plans that have come and gone and sat on the shelf and, you know, not seen their light of day in some ways. And even when we were talking about developing the Norman 2025 land use plan in 2004, one of the recommendations of that group was that we established a neighborhood planning program. And the recommendation was made at a time that we had a dedicated staff person to help do that. So this is an idea whose it's definitely been discussed before, but I think we are actually finally to a place where we're, this is an idea whose time has finally come to get some serious consideration. So I'm really excited about that. And I don't know if Mayor Clark wanted to add anything about the work of her task force this summer, but it's interesting that the work that was put in by quite a few people that were on your task force, Mayor Clark, on social services and community outreach, one of the final conclusions that was a recommendation of that group was that we do consider Neighborhood Alliance as one of that they felt community outreach programs were a really important part of how to move forward in our community. And Neighborhood Alliance was specifically discussed, and Ms. Rasco was invited at the time, and we actually have a proposal that was made at that time. So we have a document to work with, as Mayor Clark suggested. And I just think this is coming from, you know, so many different directions. One of the things that I wanted to ask was in hiring, well, let me take a step back. So in talking to Lisa Craig about how this would transition and be how the planning department would work in collaboration with a Neighborhood Alliance type of contract, it's really occurred to me that it would solve some sort of unintended consequences that we have, which is a city that is not really staffed to its full level like it should be compared to other peer and benchmark cities. So having a staff person with Neighborhood Alliance that's devoted to this particular lane of work would definitely benefit the planning department, be able to enhance what Ms. Craig brings to the table every day. And it also occurred to me that we have so many different departments. I'm thinking of the Action Center in particular, where we do try to get an immediate response and we do try to address neighbors' concern. And I think so many of those things, if we go back and look at the history of those calls, would be things that would be attended to with organized neighborhoods and leadership teams in neighborhoods. And, we could be able to offload a lot of that workload into a contract with Neighborhood Alliance. So I'm seeing a lot of benefits just in efficiency, customer service, response time, that sort of thing. So I think that's a real plus to all of this too. So if we are on the timeline that you suggest, and I think we've already, expressed our preference for someone that's familiar with Norman, where would this, how would they office here in Norman, or would they office out of Oklahoma City, or how would that work?
They would probably office at home
Okay.
to begin with. And then we have a connection with Vince DeBerry, who works for the OU. And he used to serve on our board, and he lives in Norman and is part of a big neighborhood association there. And he's a big supporter of it. And he, I'm trying to think of the name of his company, CPS, I think is the name of it, that they train all of the state workers out of OU over there. They have a huge area, and he said, anytime you need group space, we can find it here in our building.
Okay.
So we feel confident we can find group space when we need that. And I think the employee would work office out of their home.
Okay. Yeah, we're in that post-pandemic world where we have lots of options now, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. And then I think if I read through your proposal that you presented earlier or last summer, I guess, and you mentioned a board of directors, and would you consider having some people from Norman as part of your board of directors? Would there be, an established seat for somebody from Norman, or what's your thinking about that?
Yes, we definitely would have a seat for a person from Norman to represent neighborhoods on our board.
Mm-hmm.
And then we might look at a different system as well that has a community advisory board for Neighborhood Alliance from Norman that works really closely with the Norman employee, and maybe has at least every other month meetings, if not every month meetings, to kind of really keep in track with what's going on on that city level. But yes, we would also like to have a board member on our board from Norman.
And what would that community advisory board, how would you envision that? Like how would it be, people from the neighborhoods, or what kind of representation would you envision there?
Until I get to know your city better, I really can't tell you. In my opinion right now, before getting to know you, it would need to have definitely some neighborhoods, different demographic levels of neighborhoods, maybe 3 or 4 seats on that. It would need to have somebody from the police department, somebody from the city, maybe code enforcement, or some entity that works with neighborhoods a lot. And somebody, then if there are other partners in town, like Rebuilding Together, or other partners, we have Oklahoma City Beautiful, anybody like that we would be partnering with a lot on a private entity, they would hopefully would have somebody that would be on that as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then, let's see, I forgot what I was going to say. Nope, it's gone. As far as I know what I was going to ask you about. So in Ward 4, I represent really the core part of Norman, central part of Norman. All 3 of our historic districts are in Ward 4. We have, I actually sat down and made a list today of about 17 to 20 people who have literally had some interest in community building over the last 4 or 5 years in neighborhoods in Core Norman. And even this recommendation that goes as far back as 2004 identified 16 distinct neighborhoods in Core Norman. And as you, or I think it was Mayor Clark mentioned, we have a really unique situation because in Core Norman, I'm not familiar, there may be one or two, but we don't even have the ability to have an HOA. So everything moving forward would have to be the neighborhood association model. So for example, in my historic district, we've literally had an incorporated neighborhood association since 1995. And, you know, there are a couple other ones that I think have been formalized, and depending upon the energy of the neighbors and the leadership in the neighborhood, you know, that ebbs and flows over time. So, you know, having a consistent resource to support interests of neighbors and neighborhoods to continue to build neighborhoods and to have that sort of consistent transition of leadership from, you know, year to year to build these strong neighborhood associations, I think has real value. We also have a lot of areas around Norman that do have HOAs. So you touched on it a little bit, but is there any, are you able to sort of address both of those peculiar entities under the umbrella of the Neighborhood Alliance, and, you know, focus some programming towards those with HOAs and some that don't have that option? You know, how do we do that? How do we build that community?
That's a good question. And let me give you just a tiny bit of education first. And Leah, I think you understand this, but I want to make sure everyone does. There are two distinct types of neighborhoods. There's a voluntary neighborhood, which just is called a neighborhood association. That's all it is. We want all of them to be incorporated, to have a set of bylaws, to have an elected set of officers and or an elected leadership team. So they need that. They can't open a co-bank account without that. They have to have some kind of structure of how they're going to run, when they're going to elect people and so forth. That's a voluntary neighborhood or just neighborhood association. The second level of neighborhoods are homeowner associations. We're one of the few states that call them homeowner associations. They're also called property owner associations and other names across the country, but here we call them HOAs or homeowners. Those are decided when the developer builds the neighborhood. And I don't know exactly in Norman, but in the city of Oklahoma City, they tell that developer, if you have even a common sign that they have to take care of, or any common area inside, a pool, mowing, even a pond, then you absolutely must create an HOA. You have no choice about it. And the people that move in there have no choice but to be at least members of that HOA and pay into it. So what we do is we work with both. We provide resources for the homeowner associations, such as workshops for maintaining private roadways and private waterways, where we bring in experts in the field to do that. We have we have a legal issues workshop that's held 3 times a year. It's 2 different nights for each session. It's taught by a local attorney, Matthew Winton, whose sole practice is nothing but HOAs and condominium associations. And it is like the Bible that comes with HOAs. There's a lot of HOAs in Oklahoma City now that have actually put into their bylaws that their newly elected officers must attend a class at Neighborhood Alliance within the first 3 months of being elected, so that they can get these best same practices. And then once a month, I do a workshop for HOAs on how to be the best officer and how to organize an HOA. It's called Jumpstart HOA. And we go over, and it's for 2 hours, and it's kind of a mini session of the legal issues on covenants, how to change covenants, how to change articles, what the city can and can't do for you as an HOA, and all of that kind of stuff is covered. How to lead an effective meeting is covered in that HOA. And then we have on a separate night a class that Anna and Sarah on our staff teach, which is the same thing, but for voluntary neighborhoods. So we try to have workshops for both. What we were mainly interested in with our half-time employee and our time in Norman coming in would be to focus on the voluntary neighborhood associations first, and then open the invitation to your HOAs to attend our current workshops that we have in Oklahoma City. That, of course, right now they're all virtual. And to be honest, I think some of them will remain virtual, but that they can still come and get that information. But at first, I think for time-wise, we just really need to focus on your voluntary associations. But of course, all of that is up in the air until we really get to know you and see what your needs are. We won't know exactly what our program will need to do.
Well, I can guarantee you that we can keep that person busy just in Ward 4. But I know that there's a lot of interest across other wards too. But yeah, we're teed up and ready to go. So anyway, I really appreciate, all of your insight into that. And I, personally really support continuing to pursue this. And of course, funding is always an issue, but I just think, I think there's just so much value in a partnership like this. One of the other things I did want to mention, because you talked about the relationship with the police department, and the Norman Police Department has really been very proactive in organizing Neighbors Night Out. I mean, this is a program that we've done for a number of years. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head how long, but they have an officer dedicated to that every year to do outreach and to do Neighbors Night Out. And so, we already have that going, which I think is a real plus and something that has been positively received. And I know that there's been, pre-pandemic, they were only seeing more and more and more participation as the years went by. So they've developed a pretty robust list of neighborhoods who have liked participating in that particular program. So that's a plus too.
Yeah, that'll be very helpful for us to see that list of who's participated.
Yeah,
that might be people that we really need to target to some of these first get to know you kinds of meetings.
Mm-hmm. And then one of the things that we talked about is within the CDBG boundary area, and I don't know, Lisa, is the CDBG boundary area all in Ward 4, or does it cross over into Ward 1?
Yeah, it's all in Ward 4. The current target area. There are
we have it all.
Multiple neighborhoods that are not designated as the target area that do qualify for CDBG funds.
Right. Okay.
Quite a few in Ward 1, but we have elected to keep that target area. That doesn't mean that we would not be able to extend out to other areas to provide services.
Okay, so we have that flexibility too going forward.
Yes.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know there's a lot of interest in Ward 1 too. Okay, so I wanted to make sure and cover that. And then, it would be something down the road, if we've got that kind of funding for CDBG qualifying areas, to be able to have what Councilmember Peacock, I don't think he's on the call anymore, but one of my new favorite terms is tactical urbanism, where you have some seed money to, do a small, relatively speaking, a small project that really does energize your neighborhood or activate your neighborhood. And, I'd love to see us be able to do something like that too. Okay, I'm gonna be quiet and let everybody else talk.
Okay, I guess I have my raise up. I just wanted to share when it comes to the funds that you guys have and the possibly grants that neighbors could apply for, that in the city of Oklahoma City, I've seen firsthand a neighborhood that obviously we do not have those grants here, but there's other nonprofits that most of the time have grants that are available. And we had a neighborhood in South Oklahoma City that has a great partnership with the school. The neighbors volunteer at the school. The kids from the school passed out the flyers in the neighborhood. Well, the neighborhood realized there was a space for a walking trail in the school, and they were able to apply for a grant with the Oklahoma City Community Foundation and get that grant funded to have a walking trail in the school that the neighbors can use in the evening. And also they got sign toppers in the neighborhood, another program that they needed to fundraise for. The kids in the school fundraised for the neighborhood. They ended up with so much money that then the neighborhood ended up buying a sound system to the school for their gym. So just to say, if maybe the funds are not available to all the neighborhoods through the CDBG funds, there might be other nonprofits, other foundations that might be able to provide grants, and then the staff person that will be hired could be guiding the neighborhoods to be able to find these venues to still have that impact and make change in their community.
I'm glad you brought that up. I do want to remind you, though, that voluntary neighborhoods and HOAs are not 501c3s. They're not going to be registered at IRS as a charity. So there aren't a lot of grants that can donate directly to them. But in Oklahoma City, we do have Oklahoma City Community Foundation that has purposely set up some beautification and other projects that are eligible for non-501c3 neighborhoods. But also we have a Neighborhood Alliance, and this will be available for Norman neighborhoods as well, what's called a pass-through program. And fortunately, my foremothers at Neighborhood Alliance organized this in their original 501c3, because I don't think it would be approved today. But if one of our neighborhoods wants to create a project and they want to raise money for that project, as long as it fits our mission of safe, beautiful, and healthy neighborhoods, then they can go out and fundraise for that project, even grant writing if necessary, and raise money and use our 501c3. So we can then give all of their donors a letter for tax purposes. This is used a lot, especially by HOAs. We can't fund anything that is maintenance. So if they're supposed to maintain their pool or maintain their roads, we can't take donations for that to do maintenance projects. But if they want to add a new playground, or they want to add something to their clubhouse, or they want to build a new fence around the neighborhood, or build a brand new sign in the front, things like that, add landscaping, they can use our 501c3 and raise funds from their members, as well as anybody else that they might get to want to donate to that. And it would be a tax deductible donation for them.
Okay, that's really interesting to know. That's a new one for me. So thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
I had a question, just kind of as a sidebar. Do you all work with the Neighborhood Watch program? My HOA neighbor here rekindled that, and I remember it from my childhood. But so we have a pretty strong Neighborhood Watch. The Officer Casillas was super helpful to provide the information and help this neighbor get started here. So I just was curious if that's something that you all do.
Yeah, I'm going to let Anna answer that.
Yeah, I can start by saying that, like we mentioned before, we had a great relationship with the police department. So it's part of the contract that we have with them that we do provide those crime watch trainings here in the city of Oklahoma City. So any neighborhood that needs that type of training, they contact us and we go out and provide that training to the neighborhood. So it will be a little bit of finding out how Norman works and what procedures you guys have in place, but everyone at Neighborhood Alliance is able to provide those trainings in Oklahoma City at this time.
So we have two separate programs with the police department. There's the Crime Watch, where we encourage everybody to get to know the three houses in front of them, each house beside them, and the house behind them. And we train them how to be the eyes and ears for the neighborhood, and what to call in all suspicious activity to 911, and how to get to know your neighbors. Anna has created a great card, a little card that you then take to your neighbors in all six of those places, that's filled out with your information, and you ask them to fill out one with their information if they're willing. And on the back, it has a pledge that says, you know, I will look after your property and I want you to look after mine. In other words, we want them to second guess themselves and say, you know, I'm okay if you call in when my brother-in-law comes over to borrow my barbecue grill when I'm not here, and you call 911 and say, I think someone's burglarizing my neighbor's house. I'm not going to be upset about that. I want you to do that. I want you to look after my property. That's Crime Watch. The second program we have is Crime Patrol, and that's where you actually train people, volunteers, to drive around the neighborhood in 2-hour shifts to be the eyes and ears for police department. That one, Neighborhood Alliance and the police department train. You have to be trained by the police department before you can do that and serve on that. So it's a lot more effective, but it also has a lot more liability to it. So we really make sure that the police department is in on that training. We help with writing the manuals for both of those trainings though, and everything with crime prevention is approved by the police department that we do. So that's why I'm going to have to figure out our ins and outs with your police department, because neighborhoods in Oklahoma City is so entrenched, their neighborhoods and their police department and their city council, all of that works so closely together that we'll have to visit with your police chief and see how he envisions this working with a partnership with the city and with us, how that might work.
Okay, that second part of the program just kind of I was a little uncomfortable with it after Trayvon Martin and all of that happened in Florida, but I trust that there were lessons learned from what happened there that you all have been able to implement.
That wouldn't have happened in Oklahoma City. The one with Trayvon Martin, he was carrying a weapon for one thing, he was by himself for a second thing, and he was on foot. All three things that are not sanctioned in any way on Crime Patrol. Crime Patrol, you have to have a partner, you have to be in a car, and you cannot carry any kind of a weapon, nor do you confront any kind of crime on your own. You don't get out of that car. You simply, if you see something, you call 911. What crime patrollers normally do is they see a vacant car sitting on a street one night, and then 2 nights later, when somebody else is driving patrol, they look in the log and they see, well, that car was parked there 2 nights ago. I think we might have a stolen car that's been set on our street. So then they know to call in that license plate and get the police investigating and pick up that car. Another good thing for Crime Patrol is they do have an amber light on top of their car and placards on the side of their doors. So it's that surprise of they go at all different times. By no means are they patrolled 24 hours a day, but they go at all different times to patrol. So burglars get used to the fact that, hey, that neighborhood has those little creepy neighborhood people driving around in that car. I might get caught over there. So I'm going to go to another neighborhood that maybe it's going to be easier for me to burgle in. But yeah, Allison, I'm glad you brought that up, because we were appalled when that happened, not only for Trayvon Martin, but the whole system that they had that they called neighborhood patrol was not even recognizable to us.
I will add also that the patrollers cannot leave the boundaries of the neighborhood. So it's usually neighbors driving the streets of their own neighborhood. And the police officers emphasize that even if you have a license to carry, you cannot carry your weapon in this when you're patrolling. Even the officer, one of them patrols in his own neighborhood and he doesn't carry his weapon when he patrols. You're basically just gonna call 911 if you see something and not get out of your car. So
thank you.
And that would literally be a type of program that a neighborhood would want to request to have for their neighborhood, right?
Yes, but we can't do it alone. We would have to have Norman Police Department.
Oh, I understand that.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about it in terms of, let's see. I'm just thinking about it in terms of some of the dialogue that maybe Mayor Clark can enhance my understanding of it from her task force this summer, and the discussion with the very diverse committee that she had put together that, really suggested that a community outreach program like Neighborhood Alliance would address some of the concerns with our marginalized community, with people of color, of establishing one of the things that you showed in that video of, establishing relationships with members of the police department and the fire department, and knowing if there's a beat officer, knowing them by name, knowing them by their first name, breaking down some of those barriers, building trust, that type of thing. I think that was some of the direction that was coming from the task force this summer. But I think the mayor can probably speak to that better than I can. So,
I mean, you said it very well, and I think our police department is up for the challenge and look forward to it, frankly. And based on, they also participated in that task force, and it's just, I think we have all of these great ideas, but just need help.
yeah,
And that's why this is a perfect match for the situation.
yeah, I agree. It just ticks off so many boxes.
Exciting.
Mhm. I'm going to have a 6 p.m. meeting and have to feed my children at some point. So nice to see everyone. Georgiana, thank you again for your help. We look forward to working
I
with you.
really appreciate you all coming. I just can't say that enough. So I think the next step is that it goes to the full council and the mayor will take the initiative on that to get it on the
Okay,
agenda.
we look forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for having us.
If you come up with other questions, don't hesitate to call us.
Oh,
Perfect.
don't worry.
Thanks.
All right, this meeting's adjourned, friends.
Bye-bye.